Oh, your favorite podcast has just downloaded, sir.
Welcome to the Fully Charged Show podcast, episode 3.
On this episode, Jonny insists that this podcast has swearing in it.
Any excuse to say wankle is always is a good thing. Robert informs us about his mounting technique.
So I'd have to kind of get the leaf up onto the grass bank at a funny angle and stretch the cable over. I've never been iced beyond use.
And finally, Jonny has been dreaming again.
And it really captivated me, and it's to the point where I actually dreamt that I did with Susan Boyle. Catch us on the socials, Instagram, Twitters, Facebookses, etc.
Thank you again to all our supporters on Patreon. And if you want to have a look at supporting us too, it is very much appreciated.
Lastly, a big thank you from us. Not only are we about to hit the 50 million play count on YouTube, but our first full new podcast went in at number 6 in the iTunes podcast worldwide chart. I can't believe it. Please continue to share this podcast with your like-minded friends and family, and maybe other people who aren't those people. Right then, that's enough of that. Onward with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Fully Charged Show podcast. Always trying to make sure I get all the words in that are in the title.
All of them.
My name is Robert Llewellyn.
My name is Jonny Smith. Hello, top of the day to you, whatever time it is.
Yes, because that's difficult. We can't really say like good morning, good afternoon, good evening or good night like they do in the Truman Show, because it could be all of those, which would be annoying.
I kind of hope it is all of them.
Yeah, because that is the nature of on-demand media.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
It is.
But welcome to the podcast. This is the third one we've ever done. We've had good response so far, hence the continuation.
It's been very positive. No, we're really thrilled. And what we're trying to do is cover some of the stories that we either don't have time to make an episode about for the Fully Charged video show on YouTube. There's so many stories coming in that it's really hard. So we have to pick and choose what we can and can't cover. And, so that's why we thought if we do a podcast, we can get more stories.
It's also perfect to listen to if you're commuting.
If you're on a bit of a commute,
driving or listen to it with your earphones, and you're a bit over music, perhaps it's a bit overrated, or you just want a change of scene.
I mean, sometimes even I get sick of listening to 70s classics.
I know exactly what you mean. Because
sometimes, I wake up in the morning and I just want a massive dose of folk rock fusion from about 1973, and then eventually it wears me down.
I've got to say, I woke up the other morning, and I was hungover, I will admit, and as I was brushing my teeth, I thought, I really fancy listening to some Toto, and I did. And it was actually really good. and I listened to Hold the Line by Toto. And I have to say, what an exceptional piece of work it was. Brilliant.
And it stood the test of time. It stands up still to this day.
Just immaculate piano work, really intricate drumming, good vocals.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that it must be a mental thing that's very commonly experienced, but I suddenly had... It was like an urge, like equivalent to wanting to smoke a cigarette, to hear Long Way Home by the band that sang Long Way Home.
You don't even know.
What is that song? They're really...
who was that? Who was
somebody,
it?
Of course. Take the long way home.
It's Supertramp.
Supertramp. Thank you. Yeah.
I've always thought
out of the blue, I want to hear that, and I found it it was on YouTube, and I went, oh yeah, brilliant. Oh.
Supertramp. Now, where did they get that name from? Honestly,
there was a book that we read at school called Supertramp, which was the memoir of a sort of hobo in Depression America, 1920s, 30s America. And his journey around America jumping on rail cars, and it was called Supertramp.
Was it?
Written in about 1932, which I'm assuming was where they got that title from. But it must have been a set book for our curriculum in English, and it had a lot of colloquialisms and slang, and we studied slang and colloquialisms, which of course we immediately turned into just an excuse for massive amounts of swearing in the playground.
Oh well, yeah. I had this story. Dealers won't sell EVs.
We know about that.
I mean,
God, yeah.
it's very USA focused, but
yeah.
we are. And I have heard from various individuals about the lack of enthusiasm for selling plug-in products at certain dealers, where they almost actively dissuade you. Whether they do that because they know they can't get them, whether they do that because they're not making as much commission, I don't know. But this particular story from cleantechnica.com says experts and advocates can't even say it.
It's a really difficult one, that one.
Yeah, have consistently found dealers and manufacturers putting as little effort as possible into selling EVs. In 2016, the Sierra Club sent volunteers to more than 300 dealerships around the country to record their experience.
This is in the US, isn't it? This
is in America, yeah.
Yeah.
It sent them around the country to record their experience shopping for an electric car, and the results were dismaying, to say the least. More than 1 in 5 Ford and Chevy dealers had failed to charge an EV so it could be taken for a test drive. Only around half of salespeople explain how to fuel the plug-in vehicle, so lack of training. And only a third discussed the tax credits that were available to the buyers, which is obviously quite a key incentive. The quote here: the dealership had no idea about the state and federal tax credits, said a volunteer in California. They said it was the policy of the company not to talk about tax incentives because they were not tax experts.
Isn't that amazing? It is extraordinary.
Yeah, it is.
It's because I've only had anecdotal evidence of this from people I've met. My sister being a very good example, who wanted to buy an E-Up. It was the absolutely perfect car for her, and she went to a really big VW dealership, and she said it was extraordinary the effort they went to denigrate a car that the company they represent made. You don't want the electric one, that's rubbish. The diesel one's much more reliable. This is a few years ago. They wouldn't sell her one. They didn't have one. And that's very, very common. But this was an actual study where they sent people around, and the way they were treated, they were always, the first reaction was always, you don't want electric. They're no good. They're not ready yet. They're not reliable, all those things.
And it's bizarre, isn't it? And I can't work out whether that's because the salespeople know that the commission is different to a diesel or petrol, or what, or that then there's a long lead time on them or something like that. But I mean, reading this article, I had my head in my hands, actually. Dealers may be reluctant to sell EVs because, like most Americans, apparently they don't know much about them. This is a quote: a lot of our salesmen are not familiar with electric vehicles themselves, so rather than try to sell something they're not too familiar with or don't feel comfortable with, they're trying to sell them something else that is familiar, says David Green, a professor of civil and environmental engineering at the University of Tennessee.
Right, because I love this quote: there were no EVs in stock, and the dealer stated he had no interest in ever selling electric cars, and the next one he went to, they'd lost the keys.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't do a test drive because the keys were lost. I was encouraged to purchase a non-electric vehicle instead. I mean, it is extraordinary. The excuses are
it's school homework. Bad excuses, isn't it? Really.
But I mean, what I think the two things are: it's remarkable that anyone drives an electric car because the barriers to entry, if you like, to the market, if it's not a Tesla, are still fairly steep. I mean, you can find there's certainly dealerships that I know that the Nissan dealership in Oxford, exemplary. There's a Renault dealership in Edinburgh that is like the gold standard, and they've sold many hundreds of Zoes at that one dealership, whereas there's other Renault dealerships that haven't sold any ever, not one. So it's very variable.
And what I would say about that is that the fact that we live in a world that's actually very small now. So when you're shopping around to buy a car, you can shop around for a deal, and the best, you could live in Cornwall, and the best deal on a Renault plug-in could be in Edinburgh. And you can negotiate and buy and have delivered that car with such relative ease. That but and I guess and then via phone and online and everything, any questions answered, that kind of stuff. So what I always say to people is, if a dealer's not hungry to sell your car, that they're clearly idiots, because they're losing commission. I mean, you don't go into a shop and be actively dissuaded from buying any of their products, because it's just lunacy.
I mean, I would think the long-term challenge for big dealership groups who do servicing it's definitely a problem for them because they sell an electric car, and as now is very apparent for everyone who's driven an electric car is it needs less servicing, it needs less spare parts, it doesn't need all the things that we need to do on combustion engine vehicles, and so therefore their post sales income is diminished. So what that is a I mean it's bad. I always state this, and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I've had my Leaf for now 8 years, 70,000 miles, one service. It should have had more. It should have had more. I'm not advising this as a way
You're so
to
bad.
I know.
Anyone from Nissan listening to this is just going to tut out loud.
And they're right to. But the thing is, it's never gone wrong. I've had to change tyres and a rear wiper blade, and that's it. That's all that's ever been changed on that car. Nothing else at all.
That is remarkable.
Not even a bulb for the lights or anything. I mean, I think it's I always want to state that because I said the quality of the build of that car, for all its drawbacks, and there are some, it's not got any, its range was never impressive, and it still isn't. But it's still really usable. I mean, you can't drive 70,000 miles in a car that you can't go anywhere in. It's been all over the place. And
I feel like
nothing's gone wrong with it.
You've got to keep that car.
I know, I kind of have now. I'm sort of stuffed with it, aren't I?
Yeah. Or can you bring it to Fully Charged Live so people can
see it? It's so embarrassing because it's got so many dents and scratches, and the interior was dogged.
Nobody wants that.
No,
nobody wants an
so it really
interior.
It really is a mess. I mean, it's just it's a utilitarian machine. It's not posh and flash. It's got some quality dents in it. But I should bring it over to Fully Charged Live. It should be on display there
I think so.
Because it'll be close to 10 years old by the time. Well, I got it in 2011. I can never do maths. 2011 to 2019. How many years is that? I suppose it's 8 years. Okay.
Yeah, that's 8 years.
Yeah, that's not that hard to work out, even with my maths.
But still, bring it. I think it'll be interesting to. It's been featured in many videos.
It has. It's been in a lot of videos.
Yeah.
This I think this is interesting because of the late runners in the EV thing. If you think of sort of BMW, Renault, Nissan, even Volvo actually were doing. I went in electric Volvos quite a long time ago, but also obviously Tesla, but all the ones that started and Hyundai and Kona and all those who've got mass-produced electric cars on the market now. There are three big ones that are lagging: are Volkswagen, Honda and Toyota. And I didn't think I thought Toyota, they've made so many statements about self-charging hybrids and all that stuff. They're going to start making pure electric cars. Of course they are, as well as Honda and Volkswagen.
Surprise.
But they've done this amazing link up with Panasonic to develop batteries for their cars. It's a similar story to the one we did in the last episode about Honda and NASA. They're planning to release 10 new battery electric vehicles in the next decade.
One a year.
Toyota are exactly. Toyota, and I think of Toyota now had this amazing lead in terms of sort of cleaner cars with the Prius. They kind of had a 10-year jump on everyone else. Everyone else eventually went around, we can do this is a hybrid and this is a plug-in hybrid. It was much later. By the time the Prius had proved itself beyond all measure to be incredibly, for whatever other criticism you might have for it, amazingly reliable car.
It's a cockroach in terms of that.
Yeah.
In terms of anyone can get in it and just leather it, and it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all.
They're proven by all the Ubers, Addison Lee's taxis driving around.
Because that was a few years ago. I remember reading a report. I think it was in the New York Times about there was a New York cab that had done 750,000 miles on its original battery pack, and that when they took the pack out to test it, it was at 70% of its original capacity. So the picture of the car was brilliant because it was utterly trashed. The car was on its knees, but it was still going. Everything is, it was all held together with tape.
I still, when I hear stories like that, and I see so many. A friend of mine's a taxi driver, and he's got a few Priuses, and the build quality, the reliability for a car that is so mass-produced is incredible.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Because there's nothing. I mean, I had 3 of them. They were all faultless in that terms, but they were never particularly since I've now got to drive one or two kind of exciting, amazingly, but like the I-Pace, if you compare the kind of experience of driving from a Prius to an I-Pace, it's like a different category altogether. But it was a dull, boring, but incredibly reliable car that did get, they always averaged about 65 to 70 miles to the gallon, which was, for what it is, really good. It was a big improvement.
I think you can't take that accolade away from it, and it has quietly influenced both individuals and other manufacturers. So well done, Toyota.
Yeah.
So this is a tie-up with Toyota and Panasonic. Panasonic make lots of cells for other people, don't they?
Well, Tesla for a start. They've been working with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're tentatively making moves into the space and it's announcing an expansion of these electric car plans. The first one's supposed to launch next year.
Yeah.
And it also happens to be when this new venture with Panasonic is supposed to go into operation. Right, okay.
Yeah.
The joint venture would not only supply batteries to Toyota vehicles, but also Toyota's partners like Mazda and Subaru.
There we go. Because you saw a plug-in hybrid Subaru, didn't you, at LA?
I did. Yeah, I did. And although it isn't massively groundbreaking, it's always good to see, because obviously that's the car they're bringing out this year.
Right.
What are they already working on? They're already working 3 years ahead, as you know.
Yeah.
That's the way that R&D goes.
Yeah.
So it'd be really good to see, a pure EV or a hefty range extender Subaru. And Mazda really perfected the internal combustion engine in terms of efficiency.
Yeah.
They've got some very good alternative ideas, and of course they for a long time they kept evolving the Wankel.
Right.
Any excuse to say Wankel is always is a good thing. But so Mazda and Subaru, well done. Who knows? We might get in a full electric MX5.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Nice.
That?
Yeah.
See, that's pretty my ears up.
Yeah.
So that story's from Electrek.
Electrek. I'm not allergic to Electrek. They're one of my favourite sources of information.
They are
in the electric car space. They're very good.
Electric car space.
In the electric car space, you see, I'm getting all corporate in my latter years.
You are.
This next story, though, is from Axios.com that I don't think I've seen before, but it was a very interesting story, because this is a story about how you can charge current lithium-ion batteries much faster. And it's a company that are developing, they say it's cracked the code that could enable much faster charging of the kind of lithium-ion batteries already in use in electric vehicles, providing roughly 120 miles of range in 5 minutes.
What?
So what they've worked out is a way of charging them, a way of charging existing batteries at much higher rates without destroying the batteries.
Well, that is radical.
Yeah, so the firm is called G Batteries, and they could help charge batteries much quicker.
I'm just reading this as you're talking.
I know, without electrode damage that degrades the life expectancy of the battery. So their executives include Bart Riley, lovely man, who co-founded the pioneering battery company A123 Systems. Well, they've got a very interesting, quite checkered history, and I can't even remember who owns A123 Systems, but they're still around now.
They've been around for a while, yes.
They've been around for a long time. 20 years probably, yeah. And then I could read the next name, the CEO, Kostyantin Komatov, who has a background in aerospace engineering, and chief engineer Alex Tachenko, who previously worked with telecom players Nortel and Ericsson. The company say they developed an adapter that could make using charging stations as quick as filling a gas tank.
Blimmin' heck. Well,
yeah,
I mean, that is
crucially,
a eureka.
Well, it is if it's
real.
If it's true, yeah. Like in the way they wrote the article, there was a paragraph that was called "but." So wait. G Batteries is likely several years away from commercial deployment of their system, which does not use traditional constant current. Yeah, that's what it was. Now I remember. So it's doing pulses. It's not doing like 32 amps or 60 amps or 120 amps. It's doing massive pulses.
There must be huge pulses
that are on and off. No, they must be. Yeah. So it's what we use now is constant current, constant charging, constant voltage, CCCV. But what this new system relies on high frequency pulses, and that can basically, it's like squirting electrons in.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I know that traditional lead acid battery conditioners, as they call them, the things you leave your plugged onto your motorbike battery over winter, that uses pulsing in order to keep the battery stimulated when you're not using the vehicle.
Right.
And save the battery. So that does sound very intriguing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Toshiba now and IHI dropping nuclear for renewables.
I know, that's because I mean, it's particularly relevant because of the story a couple of weeks ago about Hitachi. Because that's the thing, we are building nuclear power stations in the UK. I'll rephrase that. Nuclear power stations are being built in the UK, but not by any British company. The one in Anglesey was being built by Hitachi, and the one in Hinkley Point C is being built by a Chinese and a French company. So it's an odd government decision as to how to do this. But now Toshiba, so Hitachi have pulled out of it's not going to be built. It doesn't make economic sense. That is kind of what I've been hearing a lot, is that it's now universally accepted that the cheapest way of generating electricity anywhere in the world is solar and wind. No one's arguing that. Even the people who build coal plants are going, well, yeah, but you need they'll use the you need base load argument, but they all accept that it's cheaper to use wind and solar.
Well, I'm really glad that the nuclear plant in Anglesey has been scrapped. I grew up about 25 miles from Hinkley Point. My parents still live there. My dad always said, as beautiful as the Quantock Hills are, when you get up there, you always look down at Hinkley Point. And he said, if anything went wrong with that, he said, I wouldn't be able to run away quickly enough.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because actually, historically and statistically, all the nuclear power stations in the world have proven to be incredibly safe. Yes. I mean, in terms of, if you look at the statistics for how many serious nuclear accidents... Oh, that was my microphone.
That sounded like you dropped a dog.
That was... Sorry about that. No, but if you look at that, statistically, they are incredibly safe. Well, the amount of electricity they've produced versus the number of people who've died as a result is remarkably low. Any coal plant, loads of miners died, gas people have died out in the North Sea extracting gas. There's lots of danger and problems with that. And actually it's been safe. But that said, if you lived opposite one and you, all I would do is have nightmares of like waking up fully irradiated as the glass melts in the windows and we're doomed. But it's really the waste. That's always been my argument, is that I'm perfectly happy to have a nuclear power plant, but where do we put the waste? And it hasn't been solved. And people are always going, well, when there's this new type that will use nuclear waste. But I've been to Sellafield twice. They don't know what to do with it. Yeah. The nuclear scientists they keep it underwater in big tanks. Stuff that from the 1950s, they've still got it. Yeah. It's still as radioactive as it was in 1953.
I know,
and it costs money to look after it.
It does seem very odd, doesn't it? Like you empty your cat litter tray, but then you just sort of throw it on your doorstep. It's not really.
And it's there for the next 10,000 years, still smelling of poo.
Yes, exactly. It's like, and also in terms of Britain, we're an island. We're surrounded by water, so let's use that energy, both wind, water, and more efficient solar when we get things like the sun. It just seems to make sense. I mean, I'll read the rest of this article, which said. Japan's Toshiba and IHI are dissolving a joint venture that manufactures nuclear power plant equipment, scaling back operations in a field battered by global trends towards renewable energy. Toshiba IHI Power Systems will be dissolved and liquidated in November, and its roughly 80 employees will be principal in reassigned in other departments at the parent companies. The Fukushima nuclear disaster that occurred soon after the company was formed in 2011 has depleted global demand for new reactors, upending the business landscape. The two companies have been partners in nuclear equipment since the 60s, with IHI supplying core parts to Toshiba, which would deliver finished products to power companies. In January 2011, they set up the joint venture in Yokohama, near Tokyo. I know it well. I've done a bit of street racing there. I've watched a bit of street racing there. To strengthen that partnership, with IHI taking a 52% stake and Toshiba the other 48%.
But I mean, it's just. I mean, I think it's like this story is kind of. It's totally beyond politics. It's nothing to do with, greenies or tree huggers or pro-nuclear people. It's to do with economics, global economics as well. It's not just local, and it's a big company like that are making long-term economic decisions for the future of their company. And what are they deciding to do? They're deciding to go into renewables because that's where the money is, and they're not going to do nuclear. And I think that says it all, really. It's that's the gist of that story, isn't it? I mean,
it really is. It really is.
I think we are seeing a really big shift. I mean, it's been fascinating being in Australia to hear all the stories of that, how the coal industry here, which is the backbone of the power generating, it's coal and gas. They never had nuclear here. They're coal and gas. They never had commercial nuclear generating here, and the coal and gas industries are in absolute turmoil because the demand is dropping at peak times because it's covered by solar. Their peak times are during the day, and there's so much solar installation domestically. There's so many people who've got solar panels on the roofs of their houses because electricity is expensive, because it's expensive to generate electricity using coal and gas. It's just like. It's a self-defeating circle of doom, and they've currently got a political administration here that is obsessed with coal and thinks coal is the
Did you just say self-defeating circle of doom?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they supported Faraday Past towards the latter end of their career. They were quite a divisive band.
They were divisive.
I think John Peel was quite favourable to them, but ultimately,
they were folk rock, folk progressive rock fusion. A lot of people found it difficult. Yeah, there was a lot of fusion. One of their tracks lasted 3.5 days.
Yeah, it was festivals only. Obviously, that one.
Yeah, festivals only.
You had to be in the TP to appreciate it. Yeah,
there was a 14-hour drum solo.
Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste. Definitely.
It was.
Hey, off the back of that that piece. Incidentally, did we say where we read that piece? It was in the Guardian, wasn't it? I think
that was in the. Well, it was covered by a few people. Guardian, the Nikkei in Japan as well.
Yeah. But getting iced. This is an increasing problem, isn't it? Especially in the States. Have you been iced before, Robert?
Oh God, yeah, loads of times. Yeah,
have you?
It's very annoying. Well, yes, there was a short period actually. I haven't had that for a while now. It was a short period. I didn't even know if it was the same bloke. But every time I went to a Ecotricity rapid charger on our motorway services, I'm talking 4 or 5 years ago, there seemed to be a black BMW 5 Series parked at an angle right in front of the charger when there was loads of space in the car park. They're talking like late at night. So I'd have to kind of get the leaf up onto the grass bank at a funny angle and stretch the cable over. I've never been iced beyond use.
Okay.
Where I couldn't do it. But then there was certainly a short period when there was always an Outlander plugged into any rapid charger you went to, which was kind of frustrating because they had a petrol engine. Yeah, and I didn't. That seems to have passed, but
icings. Before Christmas, there seemed to be a bit of a renaissance of it in America, with particularly with pickup truck owners and stuff like that.
Yes, there was a particular incident.
I can't wait for things like the Rivian and the Bollinger and maybe another, big, blocky, strong 4x4 looking EV.
I mean, Ford have just announced they're doing an electric F-150.
See,
which has got to be on the back of their reaction to. They saw the reaction to the Rivian, and they went, "Oh my God, we better."
Certainly,
really instant. Yeah.
At the LA show, like you saw, their stand was right opposite Rivian. And there was nothing interesting on it apart from the Steve McQueen Bullet Mustang.
Right,
which was the original one from '68.
It was the original one. Wow,
it was the original movie car. So probably one of the most valuable movie cars in existence. And so everyone flocked to that, and then everything else was like meh. Let's just go and have a look
Yeah.
at Rivian. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see the pickup truck owning, EV hating or EV misunderstanding people suddenly going, oh,
Yeah.
hang on, you can buy big,
Yeah.
chunky, even
Correct,
faster
big,
than
chunky.
ours.
Yes.
Suddenly my diesel Cummins looks a bit shit.
Yeah. I mean, there was a solution I saw because that was a supercharger, wasn't it? It was specifically, it was a deliberate icing. I don't think I've ever witnessed that. I mean, it was provocative, aggressive icing. So they'd parked a whole row of massive diesel pickup trucks to block a supercharger.
Yeah.
In, I think, Tennessee or Kentucky or something like that. But what I saw a response, which is where there were folding barriers at superchargers that meant you couldn't park there unless you were a Tesla owner, and you'd use the Tesla app, and it has one of those code. What's that little square with black and white squares on?
You are
QR code. So it had a QR code. So if you had the Tesla app, you go up to the QR code, you bip it, the thing sinks down, the barricade that's stopping you park there sinks into the ground, you drive in and charge. So that was a solution, which is, I think that it's kind of inevitable that people are going to do it. I think most of the time I've witnessed icing, I think it's not deliberate or malicious. It's someone's seen a space in a car park that's busy and they've stuck their diesel Volvo in there and they don't even know.
They don't really know, they're oblivious. Yeah, I hope so.
It's certainly annoying. Yeah, it's very annoying when it happens. I mean, particularly if it's it's bad enough if it's a plug-in hybrid that's charging. At least they're charging. I'm slightly miffed because I can't go anywhere else and I've got to wait till they're finished. But when I have seen, that was the most annoying one was a plug-in BMW, plug-in hybrid BMW. I can't remember what sort.
Like a 330 or something.
And that wasn't a rapid charger. It was just in a car park where there were chargers. All of them were in use, except for one, which is where this car was parked, and it wasn't plugged in. So it was a plug-in hybrid that wasn't plugged in. So I wrote a very polite note. I didn't write a rude note. I wrote a very polite note just explaining that that's quite frustrating for people who have an electric car, and then that was the end of it.
And they can't refuel. Do you know, I want to just end this podcast quoting Susan Boyle.
All right.
Saying, I dreamed a dream of time gone by. And the reason that I am using an excuse to sing Susan Boyle is because I have had several dreams recently, and involving electric cars. Otherwise, that would be weird. One of them was reoccurring to the point where I've had to follow it up with some inquiries. And one of them is off the back of when I went to LA late last year to see that some of those classic cars rejuvenated with EV power. The one at Icon, the Stealth EV
that sounds
converted.
Amazing. Yeah, exactly.
1949 Mercury kind of hot rod with the. Yeah, so
that just looks so extraordinary. I mean, car. Absolutely extraordinary.
It is gorgeous. It's gorgeous because it looks like an engine, but it isn't an engine. So you can pop the bonnet, and people could walk past quickly and think, "Oh, that looks like a detailed V8," and then go, "No, actually, it isn't. What is that?"
It's a battery pack. It's extraordinary.
And it really captivated me, and it's to the point where I actually dreamt that I took the V8 out of my classic Chevrolet Impala. And
oh my god!
And did a similar thing,
right? Oh my god!
And then I thought, hang on, that would be a silly thing to do, and then I've gone, no, actually, that could be a really good thing to do. So that was my first. That was Susan Boyle Part 1, but Susan Boyle Part 2, which is reoccurring, is. Do you remember I used to have a Honda Insight?
Yes, it's my favourite hybrid ever. Brilliant car. Yeah,
it is. I only sold mine because I had started to do the school run more often with my wife, and I got 2 kids, and it's a 2-seater, so it was sort of redundant. I sold it back to Honda Heritage. You still have it because it's super high mileage. And I had a dream of time gone by that I contacted Gordon Murray and insisted that he converted it to a 3-seater.
Wow.
At any expense, no expense spared, of just like, this car, I want this car back, and I want it to be 3 abreast seating so I can collect my children.
Yeah.
And this happened 3 times, and I've actually written to him, and I'm waiting to hear back from Gordon Murray Design to see if it is possible to make a 3 abreast conversion for an Insight.
I think that's extraordinary, because because I'm jealous because you've remembered the dreams, because I know I dream, we all dream, but I very rarely remember them. But also that you dream in such technical detail with solutions to technical problems that you have in your life.
Well, let it be known, Robert, that this happens very rarely. And I mean, I've probably had 2 of these dreams in 15 years.
Right.
This one happened 3 times. So to the point where I thought, it's really detailed now. It's almost a sign. Which is why I started to inquire.
You've got to take it as a sign. My wife will be attending a massive dream conference in the Netherlands in June. She's a dream specialist. She would love this story. I'm going to have to tell her to listen.
Please
to this
tell her about it. I can go into detail. And I have no idea if it's viable. But what it would mean is I would potentially try and buy my old car back and convert it.
Right.
And I'd grid charge convert it while I was there. But, you know, there you go. That's. I wanted to just end this podcast on a Susan Boyle note.
Well, I think it's entire. I'm emotionally moved by that, as I was with Susan's original performance.
We all were. Moved. I was, and also her rendition of Rolling Stones' "Wild Horses" is still probably my favourite version of "Wild Horses."
I've never seen her do that. That'll be on YouTube.
Do you want me to?
As soon as we hang up, I'm watching that.
I can. It goes something like this, because there's a little bit. I think there's a little bit of tooth whistling in there. Wild horses. Something like that.
That is brilliant. Yeah, excellent.
I think that's it now. I'm probably going to be evicted from the podcast.
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should wrap it up.
So if you have been, everybody...
if you have been, and I'd like to quickly thank some patrons that support Fully Charged. You're not really supporting the podcast, to be fair. You're supporting Fully Charged Show, the video series on YouTube. But
the visual series.
The visual series. But please do subscribe to the podcast. And also, I just want to do the reminder, without being... I don't want to be boring, so I'm keeping it sweet. Keeping it short, but it is the Fully Charged Almanac is still open for support, and you can get your name in the back, and it's going to be fabulous. And also, just to remind you that keep the weekend, if you live in the UK, keep the weekend of the 7th, 8th and 9th of June free, so that you can come and visit us at Fully Charged Live at Silverstone, which is going to be a spectacular event. We're full of gastronomic and electronic delights.
Fun and also japes.
Fun and japes, and some possibly quite well-known figures performing their musical talents, but we can't reveal any more yet. Yeah, on the
What's
Friday
that going to
night,
be? Is there going to be Prince Philip doing some spectacular stunts in the car park?
That you imagine if you could actually book him. We're going to get Prince Philip to drive around the track and see it's going to be in an electric, large electric SUV.
It'll be in a Range Rover plug-in,
plug-in Range Rover, and all around the car there's small working class families in small lightweight cars, and if he gets £100 for charity with every one of those cars that he just smashes the hell out of as he drives through. I think that would be... I'd pay money to see that.
I was just about to say, it sounds like a fantastic idea. If it was all charitable, and there was a correct safety in place, it's the modern day bullfight, is it not?
It is.
With a matador.
It is. There's children in each car. They've all got helmets and they're in safety cages. They're not going to be injured. They're enjoying it. They think it's funny.
Yes.
And Prince Philip just drives into the cars, knocks them for 6 and carries on going. I don't want him to roll the car. I don't want him to put himself in any danger.
No,
this isn't an anti-royal thing at all.
No. I love the Royals. I think they're interesting.
Yeah, it was the picture of him driving the brand new Range Rover the day after with no seatbelt on, with Her Majesty looking less than impressed. She had a seatbelt on. Sensible woman.
What amazes me is he managed to find another Freelander 2, which is the car he rolled, and I'm pretty sure
and they're quite rare, are they?
It's been out of production for 4 years.
Right.
So it's almost like he chose one because that's his favoured tool of choice.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you
Yeah.
very much for listening,
On that
everybody.
note, yes.
We enjoy ourselves. Let's hope you enjoy listening. So, if you have been,
Thank you for listening.
yes, hello, is
Hello.
there anybody there? Hello, I met Prince Philip one. Bloody, he swore
did you?
at point blank range in front of me. Yeah, it was amazing.